Coming live from the studio, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for listening to All Sports live every Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. This is your host Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I'm going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, and college football. So before I start the show, I hope you all had a great Christmas and a great week. To start off with Major League Baseball, the Dodgers and the Reds made a blockbuster trade, which included the Dodgers trading Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, Alex Wood, and Kyle Farmer to the Reds for Homer Bailey and two Reds prospects. The Dodgers are expected to be the front-runner to acquire Bryce Harper after doing a trade with the Reds to clear some of their outfielders and their salary cap. Going into the next few weeks, the Dodgers could make other trades to clear up some of their salary cap, so they do have enough money to sign Bryce Harper. It's just a wait and see, but the Dodgers would be one of the teams to sign Bryce Harper if he were to decide to sign with the Dodgers. Daniel Murphy and the Rockies have agreed to a 2-year contract. Daniel Murphy will likely be starting at second base or first base. So during the winter meetings, the Rockies stated that they did want to add another big bat to their lineup. So I wasn't expecting this, but they did go after a really good second baseman. They went after Daniel Murphy. Daniel Murphy has a lot of experience in the playoffs. When he was with the Mets, when the Mets went all the way to the World Series and lost to the Royals, with the Nationals, with the Cubs last year. So this was a great move for the Rockies to get someone that has playoff experience and have somebody that would be really good at first or second base. Daniel Murphy does play second base, so he's likely going to be there. Since the Rockies did sign Daniel Murphy, the Rockies are expected to move on from DJ LeMahieu and not re-sign him, so DJ LeMahieu is a free agent right now. This was a good move for the Rockies. They could possibly make other moves to improve their starting lineup, but they definitely want to improve their starting pitching and their relievers in the bullpen, so we're just going to have to wait and see what the Rockies do in the next few weeks. Nelson Cruz and the Twins have agreed to a 1-year contract. The Mariners acquired Domingo Santana from the Brewers. Andrew Miller will be joining the Cardinals. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NFL football. On Christmas Eve, the Broncos lost to the Raiders 27-14. For the Broncos, Case Keenum had 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Cortland Sutton had 65 yards on 6 catches for 1 touchdown. Deshaun Hamilton had 40 yards on 6 catches for 1 touchdown. Tim Patrick had 44 yards on 3 catches. And Adam Gotsis had 1 sack. For the Raiders, Derek Carr had 167 yards. Dwayne Harris went 99 yards for a punt return touchdown at the beginning of the game. Doug Martin had 107 yards on 21 carries for 1 touchdown. Jordy Nelson had 75 yards on 7 catches. Carl Joseph had 1 sack. Marcus Gilchrist had 1 interception, and Eric Harris had 1 interception. This was potentially the last game in Oakland at the Oakland Coliseum for the Raiders. The Raiders are uncertain where they will play in 2019 before they relocate to their new stadium and to Las Vegas in 2020. I listed a couple potential stadiums in cities that the Raiders could possibly play in 2019 before they do relocate to Las Vegas in 2020. The Las Vegas Stadium is currently being built in Las Vegas right now, so Las Vegas will potentially not be a place that the Raiders play in 2019 because there's nowhere else that they can play in Las Vegas. AT&T Park in San Francisco, Levi's Stadium down in San Jose, Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego, in the Alamo and San Antonio have been possible stadiums and cities that the Raiders could play in 2019 if something were to work out with the lease, since the lease at the Oakland Coliseum is up at the end of 2018. The Raiders could possibly sign a 1-year lease and still play at the Oakland Coliseum for the last year in 2019, but because the Raiders are moving to Las Vegas, Oakland is trying to sue the Raiders for relocating, so the Oakland Coliseum in Oakland may not be a possibility in 2019. If the Broncos-Raiders game at the Oakland Coliseum was the last game for the Raiders to ever play in Oakland and at the Oakland Coliseum, it was definitely a great game. The Raiders won the game, and there's definitely a lot of history from the past that happened at the Oakland Coliseum. But the Raiders do need a new home. That's why they're relocating to Las Vegas, to their new stadium in 2020. Since the Chargers and Chiefs are tied at 11-4 for the AFC West, the Chargers want to come into Denver and beat the Broncos, so they have the potential of winning the AFC West. But if the Broncos can win their final game of the season, then they can finish 7-9 instead of 6-10, and they can potentially make the Chargers the first wildcard team in the AFC, instead of the Chargers being the first seed in the AFC and having home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Since the Broncos and the Raiders season ends on the last week of the regular season, and they both have been eliminated from playoff contention, the Broncos go against the Chargers and the Raiders go against the Chiefs. These are both AFC West divisional matchups. Since the Chiefs and the Chargers are tied at 11-4 for the AFC West, the Broncos and the Raiders could have the opportunity of beating the Chiefs and the Chargers and spoiling their opportunities for the playoffs. Now, if the Chiefs and the Chargers both win or they both lose, they're going to end up being tied for the AFC West. But if the Chiefs win and the Chargers lose, or if the Chargers win and the Chiefs lose, then that will determine what their seedings will be in the AFC. Now, whoever wins their games, they will win the AFC West. They will be the first seed in the AFC and have home field advantage throughout the AFC. Every game that they play as they advance into the playoffs will go through their stadium for them to have the potential chance of making it to the Super Bowl. Now, the team that were to lose, then they would become the 5th seed in the first wild card team in the AFC. So both the Chiefs and the Chargers want to win their game because they'd rather be the 1st seed than the 5th seed. Now, if both the Chiefs and the Chargers win or they lose, then they would be tied for the AFC West, and then it would likely go through their stats and standings, and whoever has the better records and the better numbers would win the AFC West. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens in the last week of the regular season and who wins or who loses. Broncos running back Philip Lindsay became the 3rd undrafted rookie in the Super Bowl era to rush for 1,000 plus yards. During the Broncos-Raiders game, Philip Lindsay had to come out of the game in the 3rd quarter after suffering the injury, and he didn't return back to the game. The MRI confirmed he suffered a wrist injury during the Broncos-Raiders game. He will be out for the final game of the 2018 season, and he will have a 3 to 4 month rehab process after undergoing surgery on his wrist. Philip Lindsay ended up injuring his wrist during the Broncos-Raiders game, so unfortunately his season did come to an end. Overall, Philip Lindsay finished the 2018 season with 1,037 yards and 9 touchdowns, but he will not be able to participate in the Pro Bowl this year since he injured his wrist and he has that 3 to 4 month rehab process, and because he's injured, he will not be able to go or participate in the Pro Bowl this year. It's too bad that Philip Lindsay suffered this wrist injury late in the 2018 regular season, but for Philip Lindsay being an undrafted running back out of the University of Colorado, not being drafted and going undrafted in the draft and not being invited to the NFL Combine, Phillip Lindsay put up some great numbers for being undrafted, and he was one of the best running backs for the Broncos and for being a rookie in the NFL. So I just want to say congrats to Phillip Lindsay on having a great season. Have a speedy recovery this offseason and come back bigger and stronger and better for the 2019 season. And I can't wait to see you in 2019 and see you put up some great numbers or even have better numbers than what you did in 2018. Redskins running back Adrian Peterson is the 5th player in NFL history to rush for 1,000 yards at the age of 33. Adrian Peterson passed Eric Dickerson and moved into 8th for the most rushing yards in NFL history. For Titans running back Derrick Henry, he rushed for 474 yards in his first 12 games of the 2018 regular season, and in the last 3 games, he has 492 rushing yards. Phillip Rivers is the 3rd quarterback in NFL history, with Peyton Manning and Drew Brees to throw for at least 4,000 yards in 10 seasons. The Seahawks signed head coach Pete Carroll to a contract extension through the 2021 season. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 30 touchdowns on the road this year, which is the most in a single season, and he has passed Tom Brady's 29 touchdowns in 2007. According to Tom Brady and his future in the NFL, I absolutely believe I will play in 2019 and beyond. I know I've talked about it for a long time. I'm going to try to do the best I possibly can. It will certainly be a challenge, and I hope I can keep playing at a championship level. The 41-year-old has led the Patriots to a 10-5 season, and he has 4,105 yards, 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and a 65.4 completion percentage this season. Tom Brady's resume includes 5 Super Bowl titles, 3 MVPs, 3 All-Pro selections, and 14 Pro Bowl selections. So according to Tom Brady, he still has a lot left in the tank. Even though he is 41, he still plays really great, like he's in his mid-30s. So whenever Tom Brady decides to retire, if it's now, next year, or in the future, he's definitely going to be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL, and he will definitely be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So looking at the current playoff picture in the AFC and the NFC, the Patriots won the AFC East for 10 straight time. The Texans won the AFC South. The Saints won the NFC South, and they have clinched home field advantage in the NFC throughout the playoffs. The Rams won the NFC West. The Cowboys won the NFC East. The Bears won the NFC North. The Chiefs, Chargers, and Seahawks have clinched a playoff berth. The NFL MVP will be between Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, and Phillip Rivers. This is likely going to come down to what team advances further into the playoffs, or what team makes it all the way to the Super Bowl and potentially wins the Super Bowl. Comparing Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, and Phillip Rivers, Patrick Mahomes definitely has the higher numbers in the touchdowns this season. Drew Brees has broke a lot of records this year. He's definitely going to be another first ballot Hall of Famer when he retires. He has the potential of winning his 2nd Super Bowl in his career this season. Phillip Rivers has definitely had a great season with the Chargers this year, and the Chargers have definitely been one of the best teams in the NFL as well. In the Week 17 NFL Power Rankings, the current top 10 NFL teams are the Saints, Chargers, Chiefs, Rams, Bears, Texans, Patriots, Steelers, Colts, and Ravens. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the rest of the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now. Right now I'm going to tell you the NFL regular season Week 16 final scores. I will get into the highlights from this week of football and then tell you about the current playoff picture. The Washington Redskins against the Tennessee Titans. The final score, the Titans won 25-16. The Baltimore Ravens against the Los Angeles Chargers. The final score, the Ravens won 22-10. The Cincinnati Bengals against the Cleveland Browns. The final score, the Browns won 26-18. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Dallas Cowboys. The final score, the Cowboys won 27-20. The Minnesota Vikings against the Detroit Lions. The final score, the Vikings won 27-9. The Buffalo Bills against the New England Patriots. The final score, the Patriots won 24-12. The Green Bay Packers against the New York Jets. The final score, the Packers won 44-38. The Houston Texans against the Philadelphia Eagles. The final score, the Eagles won 32-30. The Atlanta Falcons against the Carolina Panthers. The final score, the Falcons won 24-10. The New York Giants against the Indianapolis Colts. The final score, the Colts won 28-27. The Jacksonville Jaguars against the Miami Dolphins. The final score, the Jaguars won 17-7. The Los Angeles Rams against the Arizona Cardinals. The final score, the Rams won 31-9. The Chicago Bears against the San Francisco 49ers. The final score, the Bears won 14-9. The Pittsburgh Steelers against the New Orleans Saints. The final score, the Saints won 31-28. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Seattle Seahawks. The final score, the Seahawks won 38-31. And the Denver Broncos against the Oakland Raiders. The final score, the Raiders won 27-14. So that's all the final scores in the 16-week of regular season football. The highlights from this week of regular season football for the Raiders. This was potentially their last game at the Oakland Coliseum. If it was, they won their last game at the Oakland Coliseum, and there's definitely a lot of history at the Oakland Coliseum from the past. For the Broncos, this was just another bad game and another game that they should have won. So for the Broncos coaching staff and for head coach Vance Joseph, this was another embarrassing performance. The Seahawks were able to hold on in a high-scoring game and beat the Chiefs 38-31. The Saints were able to hold on at home and beat the Steelers in a close game 31-28. The Bears were able to go on the road and beat the 49ers. The Rams were able to bounce back after losing to the Eagles last week and go on the road and beat the Cardinals. After losing to the Eagles last week, the Rams were able to go on the road and bounce back and blow out the Cardinals. The Colts were able to win by 1 point and beat the Giants 28-27. The Eagles were able to hold on and beat the Texans by 2 points, 32-30. Their backup quarterback, Nick Flores, looks just as great as Carson Wentz, so they're not too worried about the quarterback position. But unfortunately for the Texans, Demaryius Thomas got injured on a non-contact play, and he came out of the game due to his Achilles injury, and he is out for the rest of the year, and he's going to have a long recovery to try to come back and be ready to play for the 2019 season. And this was a big loss for the Texans after acquiring Demaryius Thomas at the trade deadline to give quarterback Deshaun Watson another wide receiver and another option to throw the football to. So they're going to be down another wide receiver in the playoffs. The Packers were able to go on the road to New York and beat the Jets in a high-scoring game. The Patriots were able to bounce back and win at home against the Bills. The Vikings were able to go on the road and beat the Lions. The Cowboys were able to win at home against the Buccaneers in a close game. The Browns were able to win at home against the Bengals, but unfortunately, even though the Browns did win this game, they have been eliminated from playoff contention. Just too many scenarios had to happen in order for the Browns to clinch a playoff berth, which would have been the second wild card spot in the AFC. They would have had to win out, but they would have had to have all the other teams contending for the last playoff spot in the AFC to lose their last two games. But overall, the Browns did have a better season than they've had in the last few years combined. And quarterback Baker Mayfield looks like he's going to be their franchise quarterback, and he was definitely one of the best rookie quarterbacks this year. The Ravens were able to go on the road and beat the Chargers in Los Angeles 22-10. So that's all the highlights from this week of regular season football. Looking at the current playoff picture in the AFC and the NFC, not a whole lot's going to change. So I'm going to list the teams that are in their current seed in the AFC and the NFC, and I'll also get into the teams that are still in the hunt in the AFC and the NFC. So to start off in the AFC, currently the Chiefs are 11-4 and they're holding on to the first seed, and they did clinch a playoff berth. But the Chargers are currently 11-4. They're the 5th seed and they're holding on to the first wild card spot, and they also clinched a playoff berth as well. Whoever wins or loses, these two teams will swap from the 1st seed to the 5th seed. But if these two teams do both win or lose, then it's going to go off by their stats and their record, and whoever has the better stats and record, then they'll be the 1st seed or the 5th seed. So likely the Chiefs could remain as the 1st seed and the Chargers could remain as the 5th seed. But so in the AFC, the 1st seed will win the AFC West. They will have the better record. They will have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and they will also have the bye week. Now the 5th seed would be the wild card team, and they would immediately play next week. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens there. The Patriots are 10-5. They're the 2nd seed. The Texans are 10-5. They're the 3rd seed. The Ravens are 9-6 and they're the 4th seed. And the Colts are 9-6 and they're the 6th seed. In the hunt in the AFC is the Titans and the Steelers. So the only thing that can change is the 1st and the 5th seed, depending on who wins or loses. The 4th seed, likely the Ravens will clinch a playoff berth and win the AFC North. And for the 6th seed, the last wild card spot and the last playoff spot in the AFC, depending on who wins or loses, currently the Colts are holding on to this spot. But if they were to lose and the Titans or the Steelers were to win, then this spot can change between the Colts, Titans, and Steelers. It's just going to depend on who wins or loses, but whoever wins would have to have the other teams lose as well. In the NFC, the Saints are 13-2 and they're the 1st seed. The Rams are 12-3 and they're the 2nd seed. The Bears are 11-4 and they're the 3rd seed. The Cowboys are 9-6 and they're the 4th seed. The Seahawks are 9-6. They're the 5th seed and the first wild card team. And the Vikings are 8-6-1. They're the 6th seed and they're the 2nd wild card team. So the NFC in the hunt and the NFC is the Eagles. So the only thing that can change in the NFC is the 6th seed, the 2nd wild card spot, and the final playoff spot. So this is going to depend on the Vikings and the Eagles and who wins or loses. So if the Vikings win, then they do hold on to the 6th seed, the 2nd wild card spot, and the final playoff spot in the NFC. But if the Vikings lose and the Eagles win, then the Eagles will move into the 6th seed in the 2nd wild card spot. So it's really going to come down to either the Vikings winning or the Eagles winning, or the Vikings losing and the Eagles winning, or the Vikings winning and the Eagles losing. So that's the current playoff picture in the AFC and the NFC in the final week of the 2018 regular season. So moving on now, in the final week of the 2018 regular season football, I'm going to tell you the matchups and what teams go up against each other and what to watch for in the final week of regular season football. So to start off, all the games in the final week of regular season football are on Sunday. So to start off, the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills, the Atlanta Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Giants, the Carolina Panthers versus the New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets versus the New England Patriots, the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Houston Texans, the Detroit Lions against the Green Bay Packers, the Philadelphia Eagles against the Washington Redskins, the Los Angeles Chargers against the Denver Broncos, the Oakland Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chicago Bears versus the Minnesota Vikings, the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens, the San Francisco 49ers versus the Los Angeles Rams, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Arizona Cardinals versus the Seattle Seahawks, and on Sunday Night Football, the Indianapolis Colts versus the Tennessee Titans. So that's all the matchups and what teams go up against each other in the last week of regular season football. What to watch for in the last week of regular season football. So all the games in the final week of regular season football are divisional matchups. So to start off, the Colts are holding on to the last playoff spot and the second wildcard spot in the AFC. All they got to do is win and they clinch a playoff berth. The Steelers are still in the hunt for a playoff spot. If the Ravens can win at home against the Browns, then they can likely clinch the AFC North and a playoff spot. If the Raiders can go on the road to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs at home, then the Raiders can mess up the playoff opportunity for the Chiefs. If the Broncos can win at home against the Chargers, then the Broncos can mess up the Chargers playoff spot. The Broncos could also finish 7-9 instead of 6-10. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens in the Raiders-Chiefs game and in the Chargers-Broncos game. So that's what's to watch for in the last week of regular season football. Since all these games are divisional matchups and many of the teams in the AFC and the NFC have already clinched a playoff spot and they've won their division, they're going to likely sit out their starters for the last game of the regular season, or they're going to play their starters part of the game but not for the entire game. So a lot of teams that are already for playoffs in the AFC and the NFC are not too worried about winning the final game of the regular season. Now for the rest of the teams that are not in the playoffs for the AFC and the NFC, this is their last game of the 2018 regular season. On New Year's Eve, there's a lot to watch for that day because that day is called Black Monday, and that's when the teams that didn't make it into the playoffs fire their current head coaches or their general managers. And in the next few weeks after New Year's Eve, once they do that, then they're on the search for a new head coach or general manager. So what to watch for? Definitely the teams that didn't fire their head coaches or their general managers during the regular season will likely do it on New Year's Eve. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens the day after the 2018 regular season ends. So that's what's to watch for in the last week of regular season football. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NBA and NHL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NBA basketball. Dirk Nowitzki passed Karl Malone to move into 4th place for all-time games played. Only John Stockton, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Robert Parrish are in front of Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki now also has 900 regular season wins. James Harden moved into 16 in all-time three-pointers made. LeBron James was voted 2018 AP Male Athlete of the Year. After Austin Rivers was traded to the Suns from the Wizards, the Suns waived him one day after acquiring him, and after clearing waivers, the Rockets acquired him. The 2019 NBA All-Star Game voting is open, so make sure to vote your favorite players or the best players in the NBA into this year's All-Star Game. You have until January 21st, and there's definitely a lot of players in the NBA that deserve to participate and go to the NBA All-Star Game. Right now I'm going to give you the current NBA standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. So to start off in the Eastern Conference, at number 1 is the Milwaukee Bucks, at number 2 is the Toronto Raptors, at number 3 is the Indiana Pacers, at number 4 is the Philadelphia 76ers, at number 5 is the Boston Celtics, at number 6 is the Charlotte Hornets, at number 7 is the Miami Heat, and at number 8 is the Detroit Pistons. So that's the current top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. Looking at the Eastern Conference, the Bucks moved up to the 1st seed, and the Raptors moved down to the 2nd seed. In the 6th, 7th, and 8th seed, these teams have changed. The The Hornets, Heat, and Pistons are in the current top 8 in the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, at number 1 is the Denver Nuggets. They've been able to hold on to the first seed, but because they did lose to the Clippers and the Spurs, they moved down to the second seed, but because they beat the Spurs at home here at the Pepsi Center, they did move up to the first seed once again. So they're currently holding on to the first seed. The Thunder and the Warriors are right behind them as well. So depending on who wins or loses, these 3 teams can move up and down. At number 2 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. At number 3 is the Golden State Warriors. At number 4 is the Los Angeles Clippers. At number 5 is the Portland Trail Blazers. At number 6 is the Houston Rockets. At number 7 is the Los Angeles Lakers. And at number 8 is the Sacramento Kings. So that's the current top 8 teams in the Western Conference. What to watch for in the Western Conference? The Western Conference is definitely very competitive. Each of the teams in the top 8 are only a few games apart from each other. So if the team loses, then they're going to move down. But if the team wins, then they can move up. So these teams can definitely move up and down. The Nuggets definitely have to win if they want to hold on to the first seed. Otherwise, the Thunder and the Warriors are right behind them. And these 3 teams can move up and down. So looking at the Western Conference, the Rockets have been able to get into the top 8 of the Western Conference. For the Lakers, they've moved down to the 7th seed in the Western Conference because on Christmas, even though the Lakers were able to beat the Warriors, the Lakers did lose LeBron James during the game. During the game, LeBron James did have to come out of the game with a groin injury after he went back to the locker room and the injury was confirmed. And right now, LeBron James is listed day to day with a groin injury, and there's no possible date or game set of when he's going to return, so this could affect the Lakers and move them further down into the top 8 of the Western Conference, or even move them out of the top 8. In the Week 11 NBA Power Rankings, the current top 10 NBA basketball teams are the Warriors, Raptors, Nuggets, Thunder, Bucks, 76ers, Pacers, Lakers, Celtics, and Rockets. Moving on now to NHL hockey. On New Year's Day, we got the NHL Winter Classic game between the Boston Bruins and the Chicago Blackhawks at Notre Dame Stadium. Right now, I'm going to give you the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. In the NHL, the division standings go off the amount of goals the team scored, not by the wins or losses by the team. So to start off in the Eastern Conference, in the Metropolitan Division, right now Washington is leading this division at 49 points, and Columbus and Pittsburgh are right behind Washington in the Metropolitan Division. In the Atlantic Division, right now Tampa Bay is leading this division at 60 points, and Toronto's right behind Tampa Bay in the Atlantic Division. In the Western Conference, right now in the Central Division, Winnipeg's leading this division at 50 points. In Nashville and Colorado are right behind them in the Central Division. And in the Pacific Division, right now Calgary is leading this division at 49 points. And San Jose and Las Vegas are right behind them in the Pacific Division. So that's the current standings in the Eastern and Western Conference of the NHL. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about college football, college basketball, and the end of the show. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to college football. All of the major bowl games, which includes the best college football teams, will be this weekend and going into New Year's Day. On December 29th, number 10 Florida goes against number 7 Michigan in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Number 4 Oklahoma goes against number 1 Alabama in the Capital One Orange Bowl. And number 3 Notre Dame goes against number 2 Clemson in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. On January 1st, number 11 LSU goes against number 8 UCF in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Number 9 Washington goes against number 6 Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, and number 15 Texas goes against number 5 Georgia in the All-State Sugar Bowl. Moving on now to college basketball. In the men's college basketball AP Top 10 poll, The current top 10 college basketball teams are Duke, Michigan, Kansas, Tennessee, Nevada, Virginia, Gonzaga, Texas Tech, Florida State, and Virginia Tech. Moving on now to end the show, what to watch for this week in sports. The Broncos' last game of the 2018 regular season is this Sunday against the Chargers at Mile High Stadium. The last week of regular season football, the Denver Nuggets, NBA basketball, all of the big and major college football bowl games, college basketball, the NHL Winter Classic on New Year's Day between the Boston Bruins and the Chicago Blackhawks at Notre Dame Stadium. Moving on now, on the next show, I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, and college football. I hope you all have a great New Year's. Happy holidays from All Sports with Gerardo. Next week after New Year's passes, I should be back in the Tivoli Met Radio studio on Auraria campus. I will let you know on my story on my social media pages, so stay tuned for that. If I am back in the Tivoli Met Radio studio, the next All Sports with Gerardo show will be next Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. live in the Tivoli Met Radio studio, but I will let you know if I cannot go back to the Tivoli Met Radio studio next week. I will do another show from this studio, and then the following week I will for sure be back in the Tivoli Met Radio studio, so stay tuned for that. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next week. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo. I want to say goodbye to 2018 and hello to 2019. 2018 was a great year for your host Gerardo and for All Sports with Gerardo. And 2019 is going to be a great year for your host Gerardo and for All Sports with Gerardo. And the goals for 2019 is for All Sports with Gerardo to be bigger and better and to have a bigger audience as well. From your host Gerardo, I want to say thank you to my audience and thank you to anybody that was consistent and listened to All Sports with Gerardo on a weekly basis. And I also want to say thank you to everybody that viewed my videos and my content on my social media pages at All Sports with Gerardo on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I want to say thank you for the views, the likes, and the comments. They're much appreciated, and I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't, subscribe to my YouTube page, like my page on Facebook, or follow my page on Instagram at All Sports with Gerardo. That's where I post all my videos and all my content. Also, if you haven't, you can view my content on mymetmedia.com/allsportswithgerardo under shows, Met Radio, All Sports with Gerardo. All of my episodes are there as well. So once again, from your host Gerardo, I want to say thank you, goodbye to 2018, and hello to 2019.